Let's welcome our audience. Welcome to the Ready, Set, Gemini podcast. I am Dan Mora, your host, and directly across from me, my co-host.
Hey, everybody. It's Frank Smithson.
How you doing, Frank?
Doing fantastic.
That's great.
Really good weekend.
That's great.
A lot of family time.
Awesome.
Packed. How about you?
Yeah. I went to a three-year-old birthday party. It was too many 3-year-olds.
Yeah. It'd be pretty cool to watch that.
It was hilarious. It was fun. Good times. Holiday party on Friday. Went hunting on yesterday morning.
Nice. And you did well.
Did well. Yeah. I mean, relatively speaking. It was about on average how many shots I took compared to how many birds I got.
Did you clean them?
Yeah.
Nice. So the quack shack?
Yeah.
Nice. That's the way to do it. I'm finding out the hard way. Having a proper cleaning station is very helpful. Plucking feathers for an hour per duck is not enjoyable.
Yeah. Very cool. So topic today, time person of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So the short list was Elon Musk, Xi Jinping, the Supreme Court, Liz Cheney, Vladimir Zelensky, Mackenzie Scott, the protesters in Iran, Ron DeSantis, Janet Yellen, and gun safety advocates. And the qualifications are defined by Time says person of the year, called man of the year or woman of the year until 1999, features a person, a group, an idea, or an object that, for better or worse, important, has done the most to influence the events of the year. So you read to me the winner was who now?
Vladimir Zelensky.
Gotcha.
Which, yeah, I guess when I think about what's going on in the world, I'm probably pretty blindsided by what's going on in the U.S. So like the Supreme Court seems like it would have been one that's pretty high, but that really only impacts us. So I think that's a pretty good choice. All of the short list runners seem like they were in pretty good position.
Well, and that's an interesting point that Time is an American magazine. So, for example, I think Liz Cheney around the world, Mackenzie Scott, Ron DeSantis, Janet Yellen, those folks probably would not even appear on the radar of maybe anybody outside of the United States.
Yellen maybe because of the financial impact, right?
Maybe.
What happens financially in the United States has a ripple effect through the rest of the world. But I mean, that's the same thing with what's going on in Ukraine. I think that's probably legitimate, creating the most impact worldwide, like food shortages and that type of stuff. A lot of the oil.
So you would agree with the winner?
I think so. I mean, Xi Jinping as well is pretty high up there, because if you think of where we're at post-COVID, if we can still call it that, with all the shortages and the chips and all of that, that's all because of China, right? Their crazy COVID lockdown strategy, which I guess is just starting to release and loosen up. So maybe we'll get more production over there, which could benefit us. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, great. Zelensky is. I think you kind of hit on it. I think the oil issues per se, and the food shortages coming out of Ukraine, the political results of implications from Russia, the geopolitical fallout from the Ukraine war, and then quite miraculously, Zelensky and the Ukrainian army are putting up a strong defense against the Russians. So that's I don't know. And then it's very interesting. All of these actually have really good
So should have
arguments.
Vladimir Putin have been more above of Zelensky? I mean, if we talk about the influence, like he's the one making all of this stuff happen. I think Ukraine's doing well against such a big power of the world. But he's the one that's the cause of this whole thing.
I think, though, it would have been easy, and I thought this from the outset, like this is Putin's just going to roll over Ukraine easily, quickly. So that to me is why, or maybe that's an argument why Zelensky made it onto that list.
So one thing that didn't make it onto the list, if we're talking about an idea or an object, it's climate change. I think that one's pretty interesting. We had, some pretty significant natural disasters this year in Palestine. They had like over 30% of their whole entire country was like flooded underwater or something like that. It was a while back. Then we had the storms in Florida ripping through, and kind of interesting. A lot of talk about that in the world.
Yeah. I really am interested in how the protesters in Iran, how this is gonna. I just watched a documentary on the Taliban taking back over Afghanistan, and the issues with that are women's rights are a huge issue with the Taliban taking over Afghanistan, schools and work, the refugee situation that happened as a result of that. That really kind of got me thinking about the type of change in the world that we need to see or should see as a result to rights and that sort of thing. So the protests in Iran are kind of important. And interesting to see. Iran borders Afghanistan on its whole western side. And so immigrants coming from Afghanistan are usually walking west. They have to go through Iran to get to what they think is the right place, which is Turkey.
Oh, wow.
So Turkey has been flooded with refugees from Afghanistan. These people, you just feel for them. The plight that they have to go through with hunger and shelter, and we in our first world problems here, just makes me think that maybe the things that are American on this list are pretty minor.
Sure. Yeah, and what's going on in Iran is definitely horrible there, but how much does it influence the world? Right.
Good point.
So I understand why it wouldn't be on the list. I mean, there's a lot of other atrocities that are happening that aren't even communicated here, but
I think about it in terms of this as a representative, as what's being represented in Iran. If that gets that seeding other areas of the planet, other areas of the world. There was a news story last week. I think this is true. I read it a couple of places, but in Indonesia, they passed a premarital sex law.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that.
Which is pretty amazing. So anybody going to Bali,
don't
get married first.
Yeah, or get married first. That makes sense. Yeah, so they're worried about like a tourism collapse.
Yeah, significant tourism collapse. And it just, yeah. So I'm very interested in how these.
It's a tattletale type of method too, like what Texas kind of just did with the whole abortion thing. Like another person tells on another person. This one's kind of an interesting. Like how do you catch that? And then it's prison time, right?
Prison
like
time.
10 years or something crazy.
I think it's a year.
A year.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's
same-sex marriage or same-sex relationships in Russia. That's a big, so this whole human right kind of thing.
The Bali thing doesn't recognize same-sex marriage. So if you are of that type, then no matter what, even if you are married, you're still going to get punished because they don't recognize it.
Yeah. So interesting things going around in the world. Any final thoughts on the Time Person of the Year?
I think they have this one good.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen with, this is total speculative, but the Ukraine war, what do you...
I think we're headed for some dark times. I really don't understand how there's not a lot more uproar about the strategy that Russia's taking, where they're just blanketing out systems that support civilians.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just creating pain for the population.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like targeted towards military. It seems very, especially for an advanced country,
Mm-hmm.
to use these types of tactics, which is more like a guerrilla warfare on their end,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think it's because they don't have the chops to do it any other way.
Yeah. I wonder how it's all going to play out.
I don't think we're going to see the end of it for a long time. Mm-hmm. If they make it through the winter, then it's going to go on for a lot longer. That's for sure.
Yeah. I guess my conclusion, war is hell. Let's stop it. Let's do what we can to stop it.
I'm looking forward to a time when the Time Person of the Year or object or thing or whatever is something positive. That'd be fantastic. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, really good point. This list, you could argue Elon Musk maybe as a you could argue. I mean, just let me put that out there that his takeover of Twitter is a positive.
Sure, you could also easily argue that it's not so positive,
So,
especially with his own thought process of what he's trying to accomplish. A little bit of hypocrisy there. It's
maybe
kind of interesting.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll leave it at that.
For sure. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Frank. And thanks for listening, everyone. This is the Ready, Set, Gemini podcast. Please listen. Please follow, subscribe, like. We want to hear feedback. If you think we're doing a good job. If you don't, we'd like to hear that too.
Yeah. Give us some topics as well.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll talk about what you want to listen to.
Yeah. All right, Frank. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.